guys, welcome back to my kitchen. This is Southern Mud Pottery on the Homestead, and today we are going to be making an Amish style white bread. This is a very simple white bread. It's probably one of the best white breads that I have tried. I've tried several different recipes, and this is the one that I like, and this is the one that I've been using for a good while now. And this recipe makes 2 loaves. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So it calls for a half of a cup of lukewarm water. You don't want it really hot, because if it's really hot, it's not going, your yeast is going to, it's going to kill your yeast if it's really hot. Okay, so we've got our half a cup of lukewarm water. All right, and then we got to have 1 teaspoon of sugar that we're going to mix in with our water and our yeast mixture. One teaspoon of sugar. Okay, and then you're going to use, I do 1 tablespoon of yeast, and I'm using the yeast in the jar. And if you have the packages, you could probably, 1 whole package would probably work of the little packs. All right, and I'm going to let that sit here and bloom for a little bit in my measuring cup. Okay, now we're going to start mixing our ingredients into our bowl, and then we'll add our mixture on top. Okay, it calls for 2 cups of lukewarm water in our bowl. Okay, then we got to have 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt. Well, I can't find my box of salt, so we'll just use out of the shaker. 1 1/4 teaspoons. So there's 1. And I'll go ahead and just use, I usually just guesstimate, but I'll go ahead and use this one. That makes a 1/4. Okay, now we're going to add 1/3 cups of sugar. A 1/3 cup of sugar. Okay, there's our sugar. Put the lid back on that. All right, now we're going to have 1 3/4 tablespoons of shortening. Now, I know a lot of people don't like shortening, but I do use it in this recipe because I don't really know what it would come out like if you were to use butter or some type of coconut oil or something. I don't know how that would work, and I'm not. So we're just going to use shortening. 1 3/4 tablespoons. I'm going to say that's 1 tablespoon. That's usually what I put in mine. All right, and we're going to mix this together. I've got my mixer on. Now I'm going to add my yeast mixture that I've got in this bowl. Okay, and I'm going to mix that together. All right, now that that is mixed together, we're going to start adding our flour. And we're going to do, it calls for 7 to 8 cups of flour. I've usually never used 8 cups of flour. But from time to time, it will fluctuate. It's according to the temperature that's outside, and if you've got moist air or dry air, how much flour that you'll need. So I never, anytime I'm doing baked goods, I never put in what exactly the recipe says when you start adding your flour. I always put a little least, and then you see where you're at. And then when I start adding this, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, there's 1 cup of flour. There's 2, 3. Okay, now I'm going to mix this a little bit. We've got 3 cups of flour in here, and I'm going to mix it. Okay, now we got 5 cups of flour. I'm gonna mix it. Okay, so our dough is still a little sticky, so we're going to go ahead and add 6 cups of flour to it. And this is a lot of flour for my mixer, and you'll hear my mixer, it starts struggling. So what I usually do is I go ahead and I add the flour that I need, and I wait until it gets, when you start seeing it separating and it's cleaning the sides of your bowl, well, you know that your dough is getting to the right consistency. So this calls for 2 loaves. This is really a double batch, and so my mixer really struggles to make this. So what I do is I get it all mixed up, and then I pull half of my mixture out and set it to the side, and then the remaining that's in the bowl, I will let my mixer knead that dough for usually about 10 minutes. Then I pull it out, I set it to the side, and I put the other mixture back into my bowl, and I let my mixer mix it for 10 minutes. And then I take both of them out, and I combine them, and I start kneading them on my counter, and then I let it rise. So I'm going to go ahead and add another cup of flour to this, or a half a cup. Today, I'm only going to need probably about 6.5 cups of flour. I'm not going to quite need 7 cups of flour. Then my dough would be too dry and my bread would be dry. We would not have a moist bread. So I'm going to cut that up and let it finish mixing. I'm going to go ahead and set some of my dough to the side. I'm just going to squeeze it and separate it in half. Now, if you have a bigger mixer, you could probably do the whole recipe. Or if you had like the Bosch and stuff, you could probably go ahead and mix the whole recipe. Okay, so now that both of my sections of dough have mixed for about 10 minutes apiece in our mixer, we're going to, you can use a different bowl if you want, but I'm just using this bowl right here that I mixed in. And I'm just going to spray the sides with whatever kind of spray. I'm using olive oil spray, but you can use whatever kind of spray, or if you don't have spray, any kind of oil that you can just oil your pan so that your dough doesn't stick to your bowl. So I've got my dough right here. And see how pretty this dough looks? I'm just going to kind of knead it around. Now, if yours is a little sticky, you can spray oil, or you can get a kind of oil on your hands and just rub it on your hands, and it won't stick as bad. So I'm going to get into a little ball like this, and I'm just going to stick it down here in my bowl. And then I'm just going to cover it with a tea towel, or you can use plastic wrap I have these little dough bowl covers, and it's got elastic on it, and I just put it over my bowl like this. And then you want to put it in a warm place to rise. If you're not going to be using your oven for anything, for baking wise, do not cut your oven on, but you can just sit your bread inside the oven, and because it's warm and dry in there, and until it rises, and then pull it out. And then we'll be back, and after my dough has doubled in size, I'll come back and show you how we're going to separate it and put it in our bread pans. Okay, so I set my dough back here in my laundry room to proof, and this is where we're at on our dough rising. I'm going to let it rise for a little longer, and then we're going to come back and we're going to punch it down, and then we're going to let it rise for a second rise. And this has been rising back here in my laundry room for probably about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And then we'll punch it down and we'll let it rise for another hour. But we'll be back. Okay, so we're about almost to the top of the bowl. So I'm going to go ahead and just punch this dough down. Y'all, this dough is so soft. Just look, it had bubbles in it. This dough is perfect. Okay, so I'm going to punch it down like that, and then I'm going to cover it again. Okay, so our dough has risen for a second rise, and so now we're back in the kitchen, and I'm spraying my bread pans, and I'm going to be using 3 instead of 2 pans. I've got 2 larger glass pans, and then I've got a smaller metal pan. And I'm just going to split it between the 3 of those. And so you just punch your dough down. And then you're going to lightly flour your surface that you're going to work it on. And you just pour it out of your bowl onto your surface. And I knead mine around a couple of times before I start splitting into the 3 different sections. You just knead it and roll it around. And this dough, let me tell y'all, this dough was so soft. It was perfect. And this is after the fact, but let me just tell you, the dough tasted wonderful. It had a good texture, and so I think it turned out pretty good. And we're going to work it here, and then I'm going to separate it, and then we're just going to turn it out into our little pans, and then we're going to set it to the side, and I'm going to let it rise for about another hour in our bread pans. And then after it rises, we're going to bake it in a 350 degrees preheated oven. I don't really ever let my stove preheat completely when I'm baking in any glass or ceramic or whatever. So I just kind of let it get hot a little bit, and then I go ahead and put my glass pans in there. And we let that bake. I think I let it bake for probably about 30 minutes. I always just let mine bake until it gets a golden brown on the top. And then I pull mine out, and I always brush butter on the top of mine and let it sit till it comes to a room temperature is what they say do, but I don't usually ever let mine until I'm ready to cut into it, because I just can't wait. It smells so good. So I hope you guys like this bread recipe that we're doing today. So now our dough has risen to where we want it to rise, and I let it rise for probably about an hour in these bread pans. And now we're going to put them in the oven. We're going to bake them at 350 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. And I usually pull mine out when mine gets a golden dark brown on the top, and then I let them sit. But we're going to go ahead and put these in the oven. Okay, so I have taken all 3 of my loaves out of the oven, and I made a smaller one because I like a smaller loaf of bread, but the recipe is so big that you really can get 3 small loaves, or you can do like I did and get 2 bigger loaves and then a smaller loaf. But here is our bread, and I have brushed butter all over the top. So we hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that it helped you in your bread making. I will try and leave the recipe and the ingredients in the description below. You should be able to find it under the video. But this is the smaller loaf that we did. The other ones are really hot. They're in glass, so I couldn't hold them. But this is the smaller loaf, and these smell amazing. My house smells really good right now. And so there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you will like this video, and if you have not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel, and we will see you guys in the next one. Y'all have a good night.